FIRST. I'm the Parts Manager, and we're here at 10 o'clock this morning to talk about the 2015 control system. So I just kind of want to get a poll of the audience. How many people are actually here for that versus kind of confused about what's going on? Oh, that's it. Okay, good. Thank you. Well, welcome. Thanks for showing up. So I'm going to give you a brief overview of the new system, and then I'm going to introduce the partners that help make it possible. And they're going to go into some more detail about their specific components. It's going to come back to me. I'm going to talk a little bit about the beta process, and then we're going to open it up to questions. And so, please hold the questions until we get to that. But for now, let's get started. So the 2015 control system is brought to you by National Instruments, Across the Road Electronics, and WPI. It starts with the RIO, which replaces the CRIO. There's one down here that you can come check it out later if you want, but it's smaller and lighter and less expensive and more powerful, and I can get into more details, but that's the gist of it. It not only replaces the CRIO, it also replaces the digital sidecar, so those components are all integrated into one system. The RIO is supported by the power distribution panel, which replaces the power distribution board. Not only is that smaller, but it also has CAN integrated, which means that you can do some current sensing on all those channels. That's by Across the Road Electronics. Across the Road Electronics is also bringing to the table a pneumatic control module, which replaces the solenoid breakout board. That has specific breakouts for your compressor and your pressure switch. And then also, depending on what you need to power, there's a voltage regulator module, which is a breakout from the power distribution board. It helps make the power distribution board smaller. And you can deploy this if you need it for cameras, radio, sensors, etc. And then the WPI libraries is all supported by Brad Miller at WPI, which is also part of the new system as well. So with that, I'm going to introduce Brad to give you a little more detail and some highlights about the new WPI library.
Hey, good morning. So I guess what I want to talk about a little bit is what's going on with the WPI lab stuff that I'm talking about is the C++ and Java libraries, the text-based languages. How many of you guys use C++ or Java? Get an idea. Okay, all right, good. So what's going to be new for next year is C++ and Java are both going to be Eclipse-based, so you'll be able to just download Eclipse, go to eclipse.org, download Eclipse, download some plugins, and you'll be good to go. And that's all you need. So there's no proprietary software or licenses or any of that kind of stuff. It never expires. You can use it as much and as long as you want. The other thing is for people who use Java, it's now going to be, ready for this, it's going to be the full version of Java. It's Java 8. In fact, so you can use all the features from Java that you were missing before, like enumerations and generics, and even lambdas if you want to do functional programming. So all that stuff will be available to you, and it turns out that Java 8 is actually pretty good. It's about 10 times faster on the RIO than Java on the CRIO. So that'll be a pretty nice feature. C++ is going to be standard GNU C++ libraries, compilers, so it's going to be the full C++ language, and again, everything's just open source, not proprietary stuff. And for the libraries themselves, the idea is that our hope is that what we're saying is that the code will be mostly compatible with what you have today. So in other words, it should be very easy to take robot code which you have right now for 2014 or earlier and just copy it into Eclipse, make a new robot project, and it should just work. And if it doesn't, it'll be very minor changes. Going forward, it may not go the other way. So we may add new features to the libraries to take advantage of the new features in the more advanced languages. So it may not port backwards, but we're hoping that it will port forwards. And so we could possibly take code that you have from the past that, of course, you've published so that it's legal, and then you can use it on future robots. I guess that's it for now. Then we'll go to. Oh, okay. Well, National Instruments. Okay.
My name is Greg McCaskill, and this is Joe Hirschberger, and we're on stage representing National Instruments. I also wanted to point out that in the audience is the product manager, Aaron Minya, and Doug Norman. So we're going to be in the booth, and I has a relatively large booth near Pit Admin. Please come by and drive some robots that are actually contain RIO and the other components of the control system. We also have display units like this. You can interact and ask a lot more in-depth questions. also wanted to, I mean, it's our pleasure to be bringing in a control system. We're really excited to see what everybody's going to be doing with it. But it's a very complex system, and I wanted to point out some of the elements that are inside. It may not be obvious that we have generous suppliers giving us components to put inside the RIO and working with us to help with development. Companies such as Xilinx, TTI, Vinkel, Dove, Arrow, Texas Instruments, and Analog Devices. So if they have booths or if you have contacts with them, please thank them for taking part in the new control system first. And I'll hand it off now to Omar Zuin from Crossroad.
My name is Omar. I represent Crossroad Electronics. We make the Toucan battle beacon and Talon, and a few new components for next generation control system. One of the first changes you might notice is the power distribution board looks very different. It is a smaller version, a smaller form factor, and has the new feature of being able to individually measure the current draw of each channel coming off of the PD. So no more guessing about which one of your motors is not working. We're also bringing a new module called the Pneumatic Control Module, or PCM for short. It handles all tasks related to the pneumatics, so it will drive your compressor, it will measure the pressure switch, it will handle all of your solenoids, 12 to 24 volt solenoids. And we are additionally bringing a third module called the Voltage Regulation Module, or VRM, that may or may not be in the kit depending on if we decide that we need it, and that will take care of the sort of tasks of ensuring that there's a proper voltage rail for sensors and or the the radio, depending on what radio solution you settle on. Two of these new modules, PCM and PDP, are CAN-based. Now, I say CAN, but it's going to be a very different type of CAN, starting with the next season and onwards. It's a completely different connectorization, different software strategies, different communication protocols, which usually leads to the first question of motor controllers, whether or not the Talon will ever have CAN incorporated into it. The answer is yes. Next season, we will have Talons with CAN supported. So you'll see in the next season as I said, a very different type of CAN, and we're excited about it.
Thank you, guys. So going forward, we are currently accepting applications to become beta teams. Let me tell you a little bit more about what it means to be part of the beta program. All beta teams will receive loaner hardware and be helping us develop the software. It is starting in early July, so we're accepting applications up through the end of May. There's a handout up here with a website that you can go and submit. It's a pretty straightforward application. You don't have to spend hours and days and days and days on it. It's pretty straightforward. So if you're interested, please apply. We are the criteria for beta teams is we're not just picking all the most qualified, best, smartest teams. We're actually looking for a variety of different teams. We want to get as many different kinds of teams represented in the beta program as possible. We're going to be going with 30 teams for each programming language, so 30 C++, 30 Java, 30 LabVIEW, and then we want a variety of teams with all kinds of different resources available to them, different technical strengths, to really try to run the system through as many different use cases as we think it might see using that beta program. So if you're interested, check with your team, please apply. Like I said, there's information up here. We actually have a handout. On the back side is information about the beta program. It will run July, August, September, October, probably into November. And so just be prepared for a long slog through that. And then on the front side of this pamphlet is a comparison table of the existing control system compared to this new system. So some specs on both systems and comparing them side by side. And one thing I did not mention, which you hopefully heard in this morning's opening ceremonies, was that National Instruments is making RoboRio available through AndyMark. And so those will be available starting late fall. Okay? So with that said, let's open it up to questions. Do we have questions? Or is it too early for questions? You're going to get a mic, sir, so everybody can hear. Thank you, Mindy.
So will the other components be available in late fall as well?
across the road electronics components?
Yeah, the PD board and all make the whole system work.
Yeah, we expect the PCM and the PD and the CAN talent to be available late October. And yes, this October, late October.
Okay, I know this isn't your stuff, but will the Jaguars, Canada Jaguars continue to work, or you know, if my line's coming out with a firmware to make it work?
The exact items in the kit and the exact items available are still to be determined.
I mean, but the current Jaguars, will they be able to be?
Will they function?
What the can? Obviously, work with the PW.
There's no reason they wouldn't be backwards compatible. The
Okay.
current system, you could run the existing motor controllers with the new system.
Thanks.
Other questions? Oh, over here. Thank you, Carol.
So you talked a little bit about different Wi-Fi possibility. Can you just tell us what the status is of that, when that decision might be made, or how that's going to work?
Yeah, sure. I'll give a general overview and then I'll hand it off to you guys for some more specifics, I guess. So one of the things you'll notice about RoboRIO is it has integrated USB. So we are currently evaluating different USB Wi-Fi modules. If you're paying close attention, you'll see that there's a lot of people taking data here to understand the wireless implications of those devices. And so we think that could be a great form factor for the teams. It could be smaller, lightweight, comparable cost, robust. But we're evaluating those now, and so we're still trying to make sure that we have the best thing. We really wanted to take advantage of Championship to try to get the data from a real event with a lot of traffic and a noisy environment. And so we'll be making that selection over the next few months.
We've got an expert here from our wireless team doing testing in addition to FIRST engineering. So we're trying to make sure this is going to be as robust as possible.
Like that. I don't want crap.
In this type of
No, it's zero's actually.
I feel confident that we will find a good solution.
Zero is easy.
But it's still up in the air as to what that'll be.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's I can't go back to better.
Next question. We got one way in the back.
Well, the 2014 system, will the 2014 system come with the gazebo 2015 system? Will it come with the gazebo simulator?
Oh, gazebo. Yeah, okay, so let me mention a little bit about that. We've got a project running right now, and we're hoping to be able to provide gazebo for C++ and Java Oh, okay. So gazebo there's an organization called the Open Source Robotics Foundation. They do the robot operating system, ROS, and they also do gazebo, which is a robot simulator that's used for research robotics, pretty universally across universities and research groups. And they actually have, where is it? Oh, it's downstairs between FLL and FTC. There's a bunch of vendors there, and they're down there. You can play with an Oculus Rift, and then you can play with the simulator and put yourself in the environment and see become a Atlas 330-pound humanoid, 6-foot-tall robot. Kind of walk around through this environment. And so we're partnering with them. They've actually hired a student to spend the summer out there working on it, and there's another student at WPI who's working on actually trying to make it so you can import SolidWorks models. I'm not sure if we're going to get that far, but we're hoping to have gazebo with a couple of robot models at least that you can play with and kind of use to learn how to program. And I think all across the board for both the WPI crew and the NI crew, and I think the real goal that we're going for is to be able to make it so that you can take your robot models and get them into simulations, so you can test your robots as you're building them, and after they're back or shipped or something, they don't have access to it, so we can keep working on the code. And so that's sort of the direction we're all heading. But not necessarily for 2015. We're going to try as hard as we can to get gazebo, and the NI simulator for LabVIEW will still be available in 2015. And that's sort of the status, and we're doing the best we can to extend it beyond that.
Any other questions? Yeah.
When will the CAD files, the new hardware components, become publicly available?
At least for the RoboRio, there already are CAD files available. So you can find those on internet.com/first and look for the RoboRio specifications. And there's a link to download for CAD files.
I think I can conservatively say they'll be available when we have them in stock and ready to sell them. And obviously, the case files will be finalized well before then. So, with some degree of risk, I could say they'll be available before October.
Thanks, guys. There was another one over here, right?
You mentioned that the new Talons are going to have CAN integrated into them. Are we going to be able to mix and match our Talon SRs with those, with the new thing?
Yeah, PWM's not going away. That will certainly still be an option. As you can see in the IO breakout of the RoboRio, there's still PWM, so you'll still be able to use that to drive the motor controllers. And certainly, I can't comment on the rules from an engineering aspect. There's no reason why you couldn't use CAN for some motor controllers and the PWM for others. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, sir, we can't hear you. Can you talk into the top?
Is the Eclipse Space environment going to be available for the old CRIOs?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's something I think that we're working on right now, and I think the licenses are going to, kind of expire next year, sometime next January for Eclipse, for the Wind River Eclipse. But that would only affect C++. There's for the old stuff, there's actually some groups who look on Chief Delphi and kind of search for like Linux development for the CRIO. There's a bunch of guys who have done a lot of work with taking GCC and making it work for the current controller and for the CRIO for C++. Is that what you're asking about C++? Yeah, so that's the case. So if you look around on Chief Delphi, there's that stuff. We may try and make some solution, kind of put something someplace where everybody can find it so they can continue to program the CRIOs next year. We're hoping to do that. I mean, not having these things stop working. So, but we don't know what that will be just yet. Yeah, I guess just for Java, we'll continue to work with NetBeans. So you should be able to just continue downloading NetBeans, load the Java plugins and just go. And we'll maintain a repository with all of the current stuff so that you can you'll always be able to get it. So that's not you don't have to hide it away someplace and lock it up in a vault or something. We'll make it available online.
Thank you, Brad. We got one over here.
Hi, so I've seen in some of the forum posts from the alpha testers that the board that they were sent has the Molex locking connectors for all the PWMs and such. It looks like the board that you have up there and downstairs at the booth doesn't have the locking connectors. Do you know what the driving factor for that was?
There were two factors. One was we did a survey of a bunch of teams, mostly at championships last year, and observed that no team that we found was using the mating connector that actually would actually lock with that. And the second thing is the KK connectors, when they come from KK, or from, I think it's KK the company.
It's the KK style for Molex,
Yeah, okay. Basically, they don't come with a pick-and-place landing site. So they all have to be inserted manually by hand. And that drastically increases cost to build and time to build. So, right, and teams weren't even using it. So we went with a more optimized solution, one that is much more resilient against drop than pins for dropping. We ordered custom pins that are shorter than the case so that they can't get hit when you drop it. So the thought is for wire retention that you would design a clip or have rings next to it or zip ties or whatever cable management solution you want. And we have threaded inserts on the back of the RoboRio case that will allow you to mount that fixture to the RoboRio and manage your wires that way.
3D print something with our new friends down here. Other questions? Over here? Thank you, Carol.
Hi there. I was at the last regional I went to. There were 8-bit digital sidecars. If that translates to the new version, that'll be 8-bit systems that are $400 plus. Two questions. One, is there going to be a quick, cost-effective repair service offered? And two, do you know by chance that you're going to be immune to the sort of problems the sidecar had? Not all with the sidecar, it's transits coming into it, I'm told.
So we won't by chance know that it will be immune to that. We know by design and by testing that it's immune to that. So we've done an extensive amount of testing, short circuit, ESD, among all of the connectors and all of the available voltages on the robot to guarantee that you're not going to end up with that robot controller.
So I've heard, but I can't confirm it, that you can feedback over voltage through the PWM cables. And that is a common failure mode of the sidecar.
Right, this is one of the tests to take the 12-volt battery lead and connect it to any of the I/O pins, and they all survive. So it was designed specifically to be resilient to this.
We'd love to be a beta test site to try out some of this.
In addition, the board is conformally coated, whereas the sidecar was not. So it's resilient to shrapnel.
Okay, next one.
And I mean, I think that we all know that we will see damage at events. We will be stocking spares for just quick swap-ins in the moment. And then there's also an RMA process similar to what you have for the RIO today. Right down here in the front.
Will the CAN implementation on the Talent be the same 2-pin implementation as is on the RIO and the pneumatic control module and those things? Or will it be the same thing as the Jaguar?
All of the CAN modules that we make use the same wide mirror straight through wire connector as what's on the RIO.
Right,
So it really should be, if you want current measurement on your PD, it really should be as simple as taking 2 wires, inserting in the RIO, inserting in the module, no termination resistors, no crimping. It really is going to be a lot better than the RGO is, which I think was the motivation of the question.
Any more? Yep, over here.
So you said no termination resistors. The CAN bus requires termination resistors. They're already built into a couple of your modules, and do they have to end?
Yeah, so there is a built-in termination resistor. I didn't explain this, I just realized that now. There's a built-in termination resistor in the RIO, and there is a selectable termination resistor inside of the PD. So in the simplest case, you would just start your CAN bus in the RIO and either create a harness going all the way to the PD and ampere tap, or what I suspect would be the most common case will be CAN, daisy chain, daisy chain, daisy chain, daisy chain. At every node, you get 2 pairs of wide mirror connectors. We denote CAN high as yellow and CAN low as green, so visually a yellow and green 2-wire differential wrap, RIO, daisy chain, daisy chain, daisy chain, and terminating into the PD. Termination resistor is built into the PD. And if that's not flexible enough, you could do your own termination resistor, which is easy enough now since this has 2 wires and you could solder your own resistor. But we think that will work so well that you would need to do that. And also, if you were to manually do your own termination resistor, you have to get the end of the bus, right? So it would certainly be easier to just follow that framework and watch it work.
How are we doing? What else we got?
We can post on Facebook or on YouTube.
All All right, well, we'll be here for a few minutes, so we're going to wrap up the formal presentation and Q&A, but we'll be here for a few minutes. Like I said, we've got a RoboRio, we've got a power distribution panel, we've got a benchtop set up and the general layout diagram, as well as the handouts that have the comparison and information about beta. So have a great first championship. Thank you for coming. Have a great weekend.